So I called Jason back. I was like, Jason, is your math right? Because I don't want to take down this multi-million-dollar electrical tower and take out the entire electrical grid of Alabama. Before Whistling Diesel made it cool, I had this brilliant idea. There were stories going around that if you had the money, you could buy a Lamborghini and send it off of a cliff and make your money back in the ad revenue off of YouTube for the amount of views that it got going off that cliff. So let's say you spent $500,000 buying this Lamborghini and sending it over a cliff, you might make $1 million back on the YouTube ad revenue, right? Whistling Diesel figured this out years later. But before that, I had this idea and I thought, you know what, I'm going to make this work. But I don't have the money for a Lamborghini. So the next best thing, an Orvis Edition Jeep Grand Cherokee. So I bought this Jeep Grand Cherokee and the idea was to destroy it. I didn't quite know how to do that. But I got a hold of this strap company that made Jeep tow straps, right? They're like 2 inches wide, about that thick, a 1/4 inch thick, and they will tow about 30,000 pounds. At the time, I knew Jason from Engineering Explained, and I knew that he was really good at math. And so I said, hey, Jason, can you do the math for me and tell me what it would take? Let's say a Jeep was going 100 miles an hour and it had a tow strap wrapped around its engine and it was attached to something completely solid on the other end. How big of a strap would you need to not budge, let's say, when it hit the other end? So he did the math and he came back to me and he said, you're going to need a tow strap that's a foot wide and like a 1/2 inch thick, and you're going to need it to be 300 feet long to get the speed that you're going to need to get this thing up to speed. And so I was like, okay, great. So I went to the tow strap company and they said, what? And I said, yeah, I need a strap that's 12 inches wide, 1/2 inch thick, and 300 feet long. And they were like, well, our machines won't hold a strap that long, but we can give you 4 or 5 straps, 75 feet long, with your specifications. I said, great, let's do that. A couple months later, they end up making these straps. And now I'm looking for a place to do this, right? It's got to be open enough that you're not going to hurt anybody. Busted Knuckle had this property at the time where he had an off-road park. And at that off-road park was this big giant field. And I called him up and I said, hey, can we use your field to do this science experiment, right? And he says, yeah, sure. So we're leading up to this. And then like a week earlier, he's like, hey man, just so you know, the field is big enough, but where we need to attach this thing, like 20 feet in front of where the Jeep's gonna stop, there's a giant tower for transmitting electricity. Just so you know. I'm like, oh, great, thanks. So I called Jason back. I was like, Jason, is your math right? Because I don't want to take down this multi-million-dollar electrical tower and take out the entire electrical grid of Alabama. He's like, yeah, man, I think it's right. It's like, okay, let's do this. We had everything set to go, and before we destroyed this vehicle, we thought we would send it on this. He had this like course, like for a short course for off-road vehicles. This thing was just stock Grand Cherokee. But we decided we were going to race around it. So he goes, he knows the course, right? And then so it's my turn, and my buddy Jeremy's in the passenger seat with me, and I'm going, but like my heart's pumping. I'm not used to racing, so I'm going too fast. And I come around this corner too fast. All of a sudden I see that there's a jump on the short course. I didn't even know the course. I didn't know there was a jump in it. It's too late. I slam on the brakes. We hit this jump. The Jeep jumps 10 feet up in the air. There's video of all this. The Jeep jumps 10 feet up in the air It's short though. It doesn't make the, like there's a landing, but it doesn't make the landing. So it just nosedives right into the other side of the landing. Well, we didn't take the airbags off. So my buddy Jeremy's in the midair. His knees are like up by the windshield. The bag goes off and his knees go into his face. I'm just like, oh, passing, everything's going crazy. I'm like, are you all right? He's like, I think so. My leg's swelling up. So we keep going. In the video, you can hear Myrick laughing hysterically like a little girl, a school kid girl. It's so funny. The Jeep's still running. All the airbags are off. They're like out the window. Smoke's blowing everywhere. The radiator's busted, so fluid's just shooting everywhere. And Myrick's laughing. And we come around. I think, though, I lost by 5 seconds that race. If we wouldn't have stopped for 5, 10, 15 seconds to compose ourselves after that, we would have won. But anyway, at this point, the Jeep is totaled, but it's still drivable. So we're still on for the test. We just can't keep it running for too long because it's got no radiator at this point. So we rip the airbags out with knives and get rid of all that stuff. We pull these straps out. I didn't realize that the straps were too heavy to lift. Like a person can't lift. Each strap is 300 pounds or something. So luckily they've got a tractor, because by the time we roll these things out and get them all straightened up, it's just spiraled, right? So he pulls this thing up with a tractor and we start unwinding it. I'm getting heat stroke at this point because it's so hot. But we take this strap. We strap one end around this big giant oak tree. I mean, it was huge. It was massive. And then we take the other end of the strap. We put it under the back of the car, so under the axle, and then under the front axle, and then we wrap the strap around the engine and back to itself and tighten it. So the strap is attached to the engine on one side and then to the tree on the other side. Our goal is to send this thing as fast as it can and to see what happens. I had asked Jason to do the math, and he had come back and did a video on his channel, and he said that he thinks what's going to happen is that the bolts aren't going to break. It's going to jump up in the air and just jump up and do a front flip, right, and land on its top. I am thinking that the bolts are going to break for the engine mounts, and it's going to rip the engine right out of the rear of the car. We don't know. We got to do an experiment for science to figure this out. We figure out we're going to like jam the throttle. We figure out a way to do that with zip ties. We have these blow-up dolls, and we have things like we're trying to hit, so we put them in the path, right? We set up cameras everywhere, drones, and we're ready to send this thing. And so I'm like halfway down the course. Jeremy's gonna like send this thing off, and he does it. And the thing goes, it's just wide open throttle, takes off. Shifting gears, it's an automatic. Shifts through the gears, gets up to about 75 miles an hour. But what we didn't account for, like we had to have the strap kind of out to the side where it would kind of run over it as it went. But as it's going out, it wasn't perfectly straight with the tree, right? So that thing gets up to 75 miles an hour. The strap is kind of at an angle. All of a sudden we hear the weirdest noise. That strap straightens, and it has to pull the slack out because in every strap there's a little bit of slack. Straightens, whoosh, pulls the slack out, hits the end of that thing. I've got this on video. The thing hits the end, jumps like 15 feet up in the air, does a cartwheel, flips over, lands back on its wheels. It was completely crunched, wrecked. Luckily, it didn't hit the embankment, jump up and hit that electrical tower, but we were just laughing our asses off. It was so funny. And all the windows busted out. I had put a mannequin in the passenger seat. The mannequin's head came off. Her legs flew out the window. We had a bowling ball in the back seat. That thing went flying through the front window. There were just parts and pieces of this Jeep everywhere, all over the field. It didn't hit a single one of the things that I had set up in the field for it to hit. It was so funny. But Jason from engineering explained he got the math right. He didn't account for the strap not being straight, so I'll ding him one there. But there's a whole video, both of our channels, if you want to go watch it. But It was the funniest thing ever. The video went viral. To this day, there's one guy, every video that I post, every single video, and I post a video a week, he says, really would be cool to see a Jeep Grand Cherokee Orvis edition get built on your channel and not destroyed.
Successful car purchasing is all about knowing your buying power and being able to move quickly, and the best way to do that is getting pre-qualified with Premier Financial Services. Call one of these numbers, speak to one of their representatives, fill out their application, and then you'll know exactly how much car you can buy. You'll approach a seller, tell them you're already qualified, you've got your simple lease set up from Premier Financial, and you'll be able to close very, very quickly. That's why Premier is one of the most powerful partners in the world of exotic car financing, and that's why I turn to them every time I go out and try to buy something crazy.